What happens when the buxom princess daughter of the Fire King runs away to avoid an arranged marriage? Well, you get more TNA than a Saturday night wrestling match. And we're going to talk about it all in our review of Fire and Ice Teegra One Shot from Dynamite Comics. See you in 3. And welcome back to Comical Opinions. This is our review of Fire and Ice Teegra One Shot from Dynamite Comics. But before we get started, please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit that bell for a notification. Your attention is greatly appreciated. And make sure you stay to the end for the final rating and score. Now let's get into the credits. This issue is written by Bill Willingham, who also is writing the main Fire and Ice series from Dynamite Comics. Art and colors by Gabriele Di Caro, letters by Taylor Esposito, and the cover art is by Dan Panosian. So what happened in the last issue? Well, there was no previous issue because this is a one-shot, but this ties into the main Fire and Ice series, also written by Bill Willingham, which ties into and sort of expands on the events that happened in the original Fire and Ice animated film. So in that particular portion of the comic series, the forces of the Fire and Ice Kingdoms are starting to gather in the prelude to war. So it's sort of a prequel, but not exactly, but close enough. You get the idea. So in this issue, what's going on? Well, King Jarl recognizes that, now we're in the midst of the war, which ties directly into the animated film. And King Jarl brings his daughter in, who's very well-formed, I should say, and very well endowed and very lovely. And he says, we're going to solidify power with other neighboring kingdoms against the Ice Kingdom, so I'm going to marry you off. And she says, nuts to you. And as soon as she gets a moment alone, she packs some stuff, takes along her trusty panther Shaitan, and disappears into the jungle. And she, of course, packs too heavy, loses some of her stuff, loses most of her dress, and leaving very little to the imagination. And eventually she winds up into the scenario where she is confronted by a large sort of dinosaur-like monster. Meanwhile, King Jarl, when he finds out that his daughter is missing, sends out word to all the kings of the surrounding kingdoms that are still either an ally or at least cordial with the Fire Kingdom. And he says, find my daughter. If you do so, you'll be richly rewarded, and sort of doing a wink, wink, nudge, nudge that the hero who finds my daughter has the strongest chance of marrying her as well. So we follow assorted kings and kingdoms in the neighboring realm, and as small tiny pixie princes go out and ride their little birds off to try and find her, and neighbors from the north, neighbors from the south and east and west and all around try to find this princess who eventually is potentially going to be their wife-to-be. What happens eventually is, as we cut back to now, Teegra is confronted by this large dinosaur-like creature. A armored knight with a helmet leaps into the rescue, slays the beast, and he says, I've saved you, but with your help, because she does manage to get a few jabs in with her knife, especially in the dinosaur's eye. And he says, will you agree to marry me? And because I saved you, and I want to love you, and I want to take care of you, and I want to be the best person for you. She takes off his helmet to at least give him a kiss, and finds out he looks like Chunk from the Goonies. I mean, it's that bad. So they go back to the king, and the king says, I realize that after running away, you're not mature enough to be somebody's wife and queen, so we've got a few more years left, but at the same time, I'm going to marry off my son, Prince Taro, and that creates a little bit of a drama because Prince Taro is secretly in love with the princess's handmaiden, Lien, and that creates a little bit of drama, which may be followed up in a future issue. We don't know. We'll find out. So that's the long and the short of it. Interesting fact about this, as far as where this ties into the animated film, the story, the time frame where this story takes place is while the war is still raging between the Ice Realm and the Fire Realm. So if you want more context about how the war started, how it's going, and how it eventually finishes up, but not exactly, go watch the animated film. It's been out for decades. You can still find it online, or you can rent it, or you can buy it. It's out there. I would recommend you do so because it is a important moment in sort of animated film as a more adult themed medium for communicating stories, and it's a pretty darn good film. So what do we think about Fire and Ice Teegra One Shot from Dynamite Comics? it has there's a serious tone a little bit in the beginning, but as the story progresses, it gets almost comical. I mean, when the princess loses her dress and she's got a bikini that barely covers anything, it sort of like gets almost in your face ridiculous. But I mean, it's TNA, so that's sort of the tone of it. And then when the princesses or the princes start coming up from the different kingdoms after they receive the message from King Jarl to say, "Find my daughter and you'll be richly rewarded," you get a little bit of comedy because some of the princes are kind of buffoons and kind of non-serious, and you recognize they have no chance in heck of finding this woman. But there's a little bit of a comedic tone to it, and the princess is sort of oblivious that her brother, Prince Taro, is in a relationship with her handmaiden, so that develops into a little bit of comedy of errors when they start talking about marriage and betrothals and arranged marriages, and they don't realize that they're talking about two different things to each other. So it's not quite a comedy, but it's sort of like a fun little TNA amusement, if you will. And so that really kind of sets the stage for uh, just kind of enjoying the fantasy of it, but without taking it too seriously. So what didn't we like it about? What didn't we like about this issue? The tone, the comedic tone is sort of okay, but it's almost a little bit ridiculous. It sort of reminds me of a burlesque show where you put this stripper in a serious situation, but because she's sort of acting almost ridiculously helpless, it sort of comes off as funny. Um, so when you juxtapose that funny, almost nonsensical tone with the grim fantasy epicness of Fire and Ice, tonally it's not exactly consistent, and you're not quite sure. I mean, how are they in the middle of a war and everybody's sort of treating the scenario like it's not like it's a joke, but just like it's sort of a comedy? It's a little bit strange, but take it for what it is. So, quick word about the art. What do we think about the art from Gabrielle De Caro, who's the first time we've seen her work? This it's good. It's good. Now they're definitely, again, they're very definitely leaning into the TNA aspects of it, and so the princess is sort of giving these ooh and ah and cooing and oh my word, what happened to my dress kind of weird gestures and facial expressions, and very pouty and very sort of almost not bubble-headed, but just close enough to not being altogether appreciative of the seriousness of her situation. So very much leads in the TNA, and so the artist they got does the TNA very well, and so if that's what you're looking for, that's what you get. So there it is. And Teegra is she's definitely got the looks to pull it off. So overall, final score, final thoughts. What do we think about Fire and Ice one shot starring Teegra from Fire and Ice? If you're into a little bit of light humor with your fantasy and don't mind a little TNA, or I should say a lot of TNA with this issue, then you're in great shape. If you want something that feels like powerful and dramatic and exciting that goes along with the original Fire and Ice film, tonally, this is going to be a little bit off. So there's some, so it's generally speaking, in and of itself, it's good, but it doesn't necessarily fit within the context of the greater Fire and Ice world. Therefore, we're going to give Fire and Ice Teegra one shot a solid, I'm going to say we'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. So thank you for joining. If you like reviews of this sort, or you want to hear more about fantasy comics, click on the next video in the outro, and we will talk to you soon.